Copy that. I'm going to be 10:06 for a few minutes. I'm going to grab a 10.99, get a bite to eat for while I've got a chance to. Temple. All right. Oh, hi guys. I didn't see you guys there. Didn't hear you come in. How's it going? Everybody still listening and washing our hands and doing what we're supposed to be doing and listening to mom and dad and everybody? Oh, great. I'm so glad to hear that. Hopefully, we're going to be back in school this fall, and I'm looking forward to seeing all you guys. And we'll learn some cool things and have some fun while we're doing it. In the meantime, would you guys like to hear a story? Oh, I tell you what, let me put this in so the recording sounds a little bit better. Hello, hello. I hope that sounds better. Excellent. I got a story for you. This is a fable. Now, what is a fable? A fable is a story that teaches something. And this particular story is by a gentleman or a man named Aesop. Aesop was a storyteller from ancient Greece. It's said he wrote or created a whole bunch of stories that we now call fables or Aesop's fables. Now, a fable is a short story, typically with animals as characters, and it's a story that teaches something or gives a lesson to the people that are listening to it. Now, it's a way of teaching back then. Now, historians and the real smart history guys, are really not positive whether there really was a man by the name of Aesop, whether he was a real person or not. But there is a bunch of writings that is said to be his and thought that he wrote. Now, all these stories were accredited to him or written by him over a long period of time. Now, many of these tales, like I said, are talking animals and other objects that may speak and they solve problems just like people will do. Now, some details of Aesop's life can be found in an ancient writing, an old book, and some of the guys that wrote stuff a long time ago. We're talking about Aristotle and Herodotus and all these other old Greek guys that actually helped invent writing and reading and books and things like that. They wrote stories about Aesop, and they mentioned him in their works and in their writings. Now, there's a very old book of stories called Aesop's Romance. Now, it tells what is thought to be the history of Aesop. It's a version of his life and a story about his life and what he did. This includes tradition that Aesop was really ugly. And a slave to a rich man or a king. But he was very smart, very wise, very shrewd. And Aesop, by his cleverness, was able to get his freedom and becomes an advisor to kings in other countries and city-states and important people. Pretty neat, huh? Well, even though he was supposed to be so very ugly, because he was so smart and could tell such good stories, the king's very pretty girlfriend, where he lived at one time, dumped the king and took off with Aesop because he was such a nice guy. He could tell good stories, and he was always telling the truth, and he was really smart. So keep that in mind, guys. Now, our story today is based on one of the stories. I've rewritten it a little bit to make some changes that kind of make it fit in a little bit more with what we're dealing with today. But let's start out with it, okay? Once there lived some ants and a grasshopper in a big field. In a big field and grassy meadow surrounded by a very rich, lush forest. All day long the ants would work very hard, collecting grains of wheat from the farmer's field, wild seeds and plants from the forest and from far away. They would bring all these heavy loads of food back and work very hard to put it all neatly away back in their ant home. After it was stored away, they would just go right back to the field for another load. All day long they would work without stop or rest, scurrying back and forth from the field, collecting the grains of wheat and other foodstuff, then storing them very carefully in the ant house. Now, the grasshopper would watch as the ants went past, carrying their heavy loads, and he would just laugh. "Why do you work so hard, my friend ants?" he would say. "Come, rest a while, listen a while to one of my songs." Well, you see, the grasshopper was a very, very talented singer and fiddle player. He would sing out as he played his fiddle, "Summer is here, the days are long and bright. Why waste the sunshine with hard work and always be so uptight?" Interesting song, don't you think? The ants would try to ignore him, and looking in the opposite direction would just try to hurry a little faster to where they were going. Although, the truth be told, the ants did enjoy listening to the grasshopper play and sing, and sometimes he would do a little dance. And it did make their work go by faster and was much more enjoyable when they had his singing and his fiddle playing to listen to as they worked. Now, watching his ant neighbors hurry along would make the grasshopper laugh even louder. "Hur, hur, hur, hur." That's my grasshopper laugh. "What silly little ants you are," he would call after them. Come and dance with me. Forget about work. Enjoy the summer. Live a little." And the grasshopper would hop away across the meadow, singing and dancing merrily away, because that's what grasshoppers do. Now, as is natural, summer turned into autumn or fall. The fall wind was filled with brightly colored falling leaves, and the smells of the farmers making sorghum and their wives baking apple pies. I love the smell of baking apple pies. Do you guys like that too? Now, as autumn tends to do, or fall tends to do, it turned into winter. The sun was hardly seen, and the days were short and gray, the nights long and dark. It soon became freezing cold, and the winter snows began to fall. Bet you're wondering how I get it to snow in here, That's Mr. Scott's secret. The grasshopper didn't feel like singing anymore. He was cold and hungry. He had no home to get out of the cold wind and snow from. Not to mention he was he also had nothing whatsoever to eat.
"Oh, what shall I do? Where shall I go?"
he cried out. Lying in the snow, still holding his fiddle, he heard a far-off quiet song and music, very faint. It seemed to be coming from the ground itself. Suddenly, he remembered the ants. The ants' home was underground. He did know that. And he figured they must be in their home warm and singing, not to mention eating what they had put away for the winter.
"I should have listened to the ants,"
said the grasshopper. He had a sudden idea, and a big smile went across his face, which was kind of hard to do with his teeth chattering so hard as it was from the cold.
"I will go to the ants and ask for food and shelter,"
he declared. The grasshopper, perking up, also added,
"I know the queen will let me in."
So it sounds like the grasshopper's got a plan. So off he went to the ant's house and knocked at the front door of the ant's home.
"Hello, friend ants,"
he cried out cheerfully.
"Here I am to sing for you, as I warm myself by your fire while you get me some food from that cabinet of yours and some drink from all that you have saved up from the summertime."
Now, he seems to be kind of asking for a lot here, because he didn't have any contribution to collecting all of that. Well, the Ant Queen heard him knocking on the door and heard what he had to say. So the Ant Queen came to the front door and opened it up and looked at the grasshopper. With a frown and a scalding tone, she told him, "All summer long we worked hard while you made fun of us, and you just sang and danced. You should have thought of winter then. Find somewhere else to sing, grasshopper. There is no warmth or food for you here." And with that, the Ant Queen shut the door in the grasshopper's face. Wow. Kind of, I wouldn't say it was rude, because he was, asking for something he may have not been entitled to. Heartbroken and hungry, the grasshopper sat with his back to the ant's house door and just cried. He did not know what to do. He thought he would just sit there and play his fiddle till he passed away from hunger. That's a serious thing there. But it was so cold, he could not play his fiddle at all, and his voice could not sing, and he was too tired and hungry and cold to even cry. The other ants heard the queen and what she had told the grasshopper. Now one of those ants, who everyone knew, even though he was the smallest of them, was by far the hardest worker out of the whole group. He went up to the queen politely and asked her, "My queen, while we're gathering food for the winter, the grasshopper often played his music and sang for us as we worked. It surely made the job easier when we had music and laughter to listen to as we toiled away. You have said yourself in the past that the grasshopper was a talented musician. It would be a shame to not have his music to enjoy next summer while we are working so hard, getting ready for the next winter. Also, I saw him teaching several of the young ants how to play the fiddle and sing songs last summer too, when they were too small to work. Could it be possible that the grasshopper could earn his keep by singing and teaching his music this winter while we all rest up for the coming summer? And the grasshopper would also be ready and able to play his music for us as we work together. I myself would not mind a little extra work in order to pay him with shelter and food next winter in exchange for his happy music and his dancing. It would be the neighborly thing to do. Well, the Queen thought about that. And she thought about it another moment or two. She did enjoy the Grasshopper's music, and she knew work came in many, many types and forms. It would not be a bad idea if the Grasshopper agreed, she thought, to sing for his supper, so to speak. The Queen ordered the ants to fetch the Grasshopper in from the cold. Now, after warming up and having a bit of food, he listened to the Queen as she explained her proposition to him. And after listening to the Queen, he agreed to her offer to work with the ants, and he would live with them during the winter, helping them during the wintertime and teaching the little ants about music as well. This went on for many years, and that particular ant house became known as the happiest and the hardest working ant house in that entire meadow. Wow. The end. Did you like that? Well, if you remember when we started, I said that a fable is something that tries to teach you something as well while you're listening. It kind of sneaks it up on you, so you don't know you've learned it until, bam, it's already there. Well, one of the things that Aesop, and when he originally told the story, supposedly, was he was trying to convince people it's a wise thing to worry about tomorrow today. That's why Dad and Granddad and Grandma and Mom have us bring in firewood before wintertime gets here and gathering it up to make sure we can stay warm. Another thing that Aesop wanted to point out was everyone has something to give. Everyone has something to give to the community. Do you have something to give? Do you volunteer to help people when you can? Something to keep in mind. And it is important to give or do whatever you can to help others. Good points, don't you think? Well, my break is about over, so I'm going to go ahead and leave it with you guys. And hopefully we're going to have some good times coming up soon when school starts back in the fall. And in the meantime, let's remember to wash our hands, keep our distance, don't touch your face, or try not to touch your face. It's very hard not to, isn't it? And be good. Listen to your mom and dad. Listen to the grown-ups in your house because they're trying to keep us all safe. And in the meantime, I'll be back with another one of Mr. Scott's stories and tales for you to listen to. I'll talk to you later, guys. Bye.